Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I see a lot of participants are joining, and we'll just wait for everyone to join in, and then we'll get started with today's session. Great. So participants who've already joined us, thank you so much for joining on a Monday evening after a long weekend. That really means a lot. Really appreciate that. So yes, like I said, let's wait for a minute or so that everyone's joining. We'll wait for 2 minutes and then we'll get started with today's session. Meanwhile, participants who've joined us, I hope I'm clearly visible and audible. Can you all just let me know in the chat, just a yes or a no or a thumbs up? That would definitely help me. There's a chat option that you'll see in front of your screen. Okay, so Umesh Shashwata says yes. Is this the same with everyone? Please let me know in the chat. Okay, so I see a few yeses in the chat. I hope it's the same with everyone. Perfect. I also see multiple hand raises. Folks, let me tell you all, if you do have any questions or anything, we will be taking them towards the end of the session. So you'll have to stay put and, just post your questions. There is a Q&A option that you'll see in front of your screen. And, towards the end of the session, we'll be taking the questions as well. Just give me 1 minute. I just got a little cough. Yeah, sorry for that. All right, perfect. So it's 7:32. So, meanwhile, we have other participants joining in. I still see a few participants are joining us. So let's at least get started with the session, then we can proceed accordingly. Once again, hi everyone, good evening, and a very warm welcome to all of you all. Thank you so much for joining us today. So if you've been regularly attending our product management webinars, you all see me daily. I mean, whenever we have sessions. So I'm Shubhada Lokre, and I'm a program manager at UpGrad. So in this session, I know a lot of participants also want to understand about the program. They are confused. They want to, understand how the program works, or may have certain doubts where, they want the doubts to be solved by an industry expert. So for those participants, if you do have any questions related to the program as well, make sure that you're posting those questions in the Q&A. Like I said, there were a few participants who've just joined, so I'll just reiterate again. We will have a live Q&A towards the end of the session. So please make sure that you're posting all your questions in the Q&A option that you will see in front of your screen. And then towards the last 15 minutes, we will get started with the Q&A. All right, perfect. Meanwhile, we still have participants joining in. So I'm just going to quickly launch a poll. I've just launched a poll. You'll see it live in front of your screens now. Now, this is a poll that says we would like to know you more. Of course, it's very important for us to understand, what background are you coming from? What is it that you're expecting from today's session, so that, we'll be able to deliver and make this 1 hour very much productive for you all, right? So just, I request all of you all to take up this poll, cast your vote so that I can share the analysis with our speaker today, and then, we can set a context for him. Right. So I'm just waiting for 80% participation, and hence I've started the poll early. So yeah, request all of you all to take up the poll, and so that immediately we can get started with the session today. Right now, I'm going to take this time, while we have the poll live. I again encourage all of you all to take up the poll. So while we have the poll live, let me introduce you all to our speaker. So today we have Ram Narayan Subudhi, who comes with a very rich experience, that is around 11 plus years of experience in building technology products across e-commerce, edtech, and telecom. He's presently working as a group product manager at Flipkart, and he's definitely going to share a lot of, examples and his experiences, in Flipkart, as a product manager or as somebody working in the product domain. right? Now, talking about his his academic experience, he's graduated from IIM Bangalore. He's also CFA certified and has filed 2 patents as well, right? Now, talking about his Flipkart experience, he's worked on a diverse set of problems, architecting across all streams of the e-commerce system. Currently, he leads a team of senior and junior PMs to build India's largest base of market sellers and drive business growth for them online. So, Ram, thank you so much for joining us today. You come with an amazing experience, and I'm very, very excited to hear from you, to get enlightened from you. And I'm very excited for this session today. So, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Subhada. Thanks, Subhada, for welcoming me. And it's always good to be talking to aspiring PMs, and hope to share a lot of my learnings and interesting insights with this diverse group of audience during the course of today's webinar.
Right. Now, folks, also let me tell you all, since Ram comes with more than 10 years of experience, today is the chance, so if you have any questions related to PM or anything related to product, today is the point, today is the day where you can get all your questions answered by Ram directly. So just, go all out and ask all the questions that you have today. And, we would be very, very happy to answer all these questions for you. Right. Also, let me also set some context in terms of the topic. Our topic is very, very, interesting. We will talk about how to start a career, and not only just start, but after you've started, how to manage and grow your career, in the PM domain. So that is all what we will be discussing today. We'll talk about different PM roles. We'll talk about product management, and as Ram comes from Flipkart, so he'll also share his experiences and his insights about Flipkart, what are the PM roles at Flipkart. He'll also share a lot of examples in the form of case studies and everything. So yeah, this is all that we will be talking in today's session. And again, let me go back to the poll. Okay, so I see 78% participation. All right, fair enough. So I'm just going to end the poll now. And I'll be sharing the analysis with Ram. So Ram, can you see the screen? I've shared the analysis.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
I'm just going to read it out loud for all, for everyone to, just understand, so that they are with us. Okay, so talking about educational background, we have almost 70 to 80% participants who are graduates and postgraduates. We also have undergrads and pursuing graduation, participants. Importantly, what is their work experience? So we have around, okay, so we, in terms of work experience, yeah, 1 minute. Around 50% of the participants come with 0 to 3 years of experience. Then we also have participants with 3 to 6, 6 to 10, 10 to 15, and 15 plus years. So I think this is amazing because, if I talk about our product management program, we have multiple specializations in the program. So, based on where you are at your professional journey, you can opt for those kind of specializations. But yeah, again, very, very happy to see a diversified audience in terms of work experience. That's great. Also, are you from product background? So 66% participants do not come from the product background, which also means that they want to start a career in PM. They want a roadmap, to get into PM and transition into PM roles. We also have a few participants who come from the product background, who are probably here to grow their career in PM. So again, very, very, interesting mix we have today. Outcome is to basically understand whether I can build my career in product management majorly, transition into product roles, learn more about upgrades product management program, and also how one can get better at the current role with the help of this topic. Motivation is to enroll into the program and hear from the speaker. So yeah, this is what I had, Ram, from my end. Over to you now.
Thanks, Subhada. I think it looks like it's a very diverse group of people. So I think great to be talking to you folks. Hi, everyone. Give me a second. Let me just present my screen.
I'll also be here,
sure.
In the session. Yeah. I'll be moderating the chat, and if there are any questions, I can just take them in the chat.
Yeah. Hi, folks. So great talking to you. So as Subhada already mentioned, we would be talking today about how do you get into a PM role at some of the popular tech companies which exist out of India as well as abroad, and how do you kind of manage your growth as a PM within these companies, right? That will be the focus of today's conversation. I have a few slides just to guide us through this webinar, but any kind of questions that you might have for me, happy to address those as part of the webinar at the end of the session. So please kind of share it with Subhada on the tool itself, so that we can take it up at the end of the webinar, right? Before we begin, just a quick intro about myself, right? And thanks, Subhada, for sharing a lot of details and for all the kind words. Just to set some context, and so that all of you kind of understand what kind of background I'm coming from. It will help us kind of relate to the learnings that I've had, and when I share it with you guys over this webinar, right? So I started my career back in 2009. I graduated as a computer science engineer. Started building technology products after graduating immediately. Worked on a couple of companies. One was a mature setup in the telecom space, and the other one was a startup which was 20 to 25 member odd, where we are building tech products for the US market. Both of these experiences helped me learn a lot about technology, the nuances of it. What does it take to kind of build technology products at scale? But at some point of time, I also realized that for me to kind of expand the scope of what I'm doing and kind of get a better picture of what I'm doing, what I'm building, how does it contribute to business growth, how does it contribute to the company's growth, I thought I need to do a structured program, and that's where I got into IIM Bangalore to pursue my MBA. After completing my MBA in 2015, I joined Flipkart as a PM. So just as a note, right, I did my MBA primarily in finance and economics. So majority of my subjects were in finance and economics, and even after that, I kind of chose to start my career as a product manager at Flipkart. There were a lot of nuances to it, and why did I end up making this decision? I'll be happy to share about it somewhere later during the conversation. I started my journey in 2015 with Flipkart as a PM. I've done a lot of diverse roles at Flipkart. I've led 4 different product charters at Flipkart in the last 7 years of my time here. I started off being a platform PM for catalog, where my primary responsibility was to build the long-term platform for catalog. How do we build products so that it scales up to the kind of business models that we want to get into, different categories that we operate in, different kind of channels that we sell in, from Flipkart to Sobzi to multiple other channels that we've created over time, right? So my role here was being a platform PM in building the right kind of tech products to be able to manage the scale and different kind of business models and use cases that come over time. Did this for close to 1.5 years, then started a growth stint leading the conversion funnel optimization for some of the key categories for Flipkart. Large appliances, which is a key GMV driver for Flipkart, lifestyle or fashion, which is a key units driver for Flipkart. How do you look at these categories very specifically and kind of optimize the entire shopping funnel for customers who want to kind of shop in these categories, right? That was my role as a growth PM. After doing this stint for another 1 year, I started leading the user engagement cluster at Flipkart, where there were multiple products I was managing, starting from user-generated content to videos to influencer-led content feeds. This was the first of my experience as a leadership in a leadership role as well, where I was managing multiple PMs and building products for different customer cohorts simultaneously. Did this for another 2 years, and then kind of started leading marketplace product. When I say marketplace product, I today build products for our sellers who sell on Flipkart. There are different kinds of sellers, starting from small to medium to large scale business owners who sell on Flipkart. There are D2C brands to manufacturers to distributors who sell on Flipkart. So how do we make Flipkart a go-to destination for all of these different kind of business owners and sellers? Is the problem statement which I own today. How do we facilitate growth for them on Flipkart? How do we personalize the experience for them? How do we match those sellers and the selection that they bring into Flipkart with the right kind of customer cohort? So as a platform we see continuous growth is something that I own today and lead. So this has briefly been how my journey has been on Flipkart and how product management happened to me. Uh, Before we move ahead, right? Uh, Generally, when I talk to PMs or people who are aspiring to be PMs, I get a lot of questions around what is product management, what do PMs do, how is it different from some of the similar roles which exist in the ecosystem. Uh, these are some of the questions that I typically get, right? Today, we'll not be focusing on so much on what do PMs do or how is it different from other roles, but I will be focusing more on the questions that I mentioned here in blue, right? Like how does it differ in different companies and different industries? What are the different flavors of a PM role? How do you get into a PM role? What are the kind of competencies that you need to develop? What are the skill sets that you need to develop? What kind of brings in more success to you when you become a PM in a large tech corporate like Flipkart or Amazon or Microsoft or Uber or any such company which exists today, right? Though that will be the focus of the conversation today. Uh, and in order to answer these questions, we'll go through this agenda and some of the slides that I put in. Happy to take in more questions at the end if you have on these aspects, right? So moving on, I think if you take a step back, if you think about where does product manager as a role kind of started to evolve and become more prominent, there is a history to it, right? It started off from some of the core sectors like FMCG and manufacturing, where for example, in an FMCG sector, a product manager would be responsible for launching a new product line, let's say a new detergent variant in the market to address some of the product market gaps that exist in the ecosystem today, right? That is where the product manager as a terminology kind of got initiated. And over time, it kind of flew into hardware dominated product management and later into software dominated product management, right? Today, when we talk about product management, we largely talk about software product management, but it also exists in hardware companies. It also exists in non tech related companies, right? That's something we need to understand. And in its core, the job of a product manager is to solve problems and come up with the next product by solving for the customer problems which exist, and how do you drive business growth through the product that you build, right? So although the nuances differ across different sectors and companies, but it's still the same set of core skill sets that you need to build and develop and as a PM to succeed in any of these industries, right? Now, when you talk about how does product management vary in some of these sectors, the first nuance I want to bring in here is when we talk about hardware product management versus software product management, right? Now, to give you an example, a PM working in a Xiaomi company or a OnePlus company would be primarily doing hardware product management. These companies might also have both hardware product managers and software product managers, right? A hardware product manager would be designing the next model of the phone, what kind of specs to have there, what kind of features to focus on, whereas a software product manager would be primarily optimizing the operating system which exists in the device or the UI of it, the user experience of it, right? The flavors differ slightly. In hardware product management, we are building hardware devices. The time spent in doing R&D, manufacturing the device and launching it, there's a longer lead time associated with doing that, right? And the opportunity to fail and kind of iterate is also limited because there is a good amount of investment you make in terms of manufacturing and launching the device. Whereas in software, you are primarily building web or mobile applications, which are easy to kind of iterate on and do quick experiments and on. And the cost of failure is not so much as you have in a hardware product management kind of a role. When you contrast PM roles at product versus service-based companies, in product-based companies, the focus is primarily on identifying the right set of customer problems, having a long-term mindset, and building products which differentiate from your competition. Right? You create a moat, you create a differentiated product which solves the customer problem. Whereas in service-based companies, the focus is more on kind of how do you optimize for costs, how do you automate things, and the culture is primarily is more towards sales or competition focused rather than customer focus. When you talk about B2C versus B2B, in B2C, you typically build products where you would be using those on a day-to-day basis as a user, right? So, and the challenge with B2C products is the cost of switching from one platform to another, like for example in e-commerce, for a customer to switch from an Amazon to Flipkart or vice versa, the cost of doing that is very low, right? So the focus becomes more on how do we create customer engagement, how do we create loyalty within the platform so that we retain our customers and don't let them kind of move to an alternate platform. Whereas in B2B, generally your revenue is driven by a very Pareto set of customers who have been engaging with the platform for long enough, and they kind of dictate your roadmap in a large way, and they kind of influence your deliverables in a large way. Um, in terms of big tech versus startups, I think there is a cultural difference, right? In big tech, the products are much more evolved. If you think about the maturity stage of products, a lot of products have been there for a long amount of time. They have achieved product market fit. They're already doing well, and so you're optimizing the existing products or doing incremental launches to further optimize your products, right? So the focus shifts from launching something to how do we seek perfection, how do we build the next set of capabilities which addresses the customer pain points in the most meaningful way. Also, these corporates are large. A lot of them build platforms internally. So whenever you build a product, you'll have dependencies with a lot of your partner product teams or engineering teams. You'll have to understand what these dependencies are, resolve them when you build products. Since these are mature orgs, you have a lot of data which is flowing in on a regular basis. You depend a lot on this data and metrics to kind of make your decisions on a day-to-day basis as well. Whereas when you look at startups, because they're getting started, some of the startup, depending on the stage of the startup, a lot of them might not even have product market fit. They need to experiment quickly. They need to build MVPs, roll it out to customers and get quick feedback. And a lot of data doesn't exist. So you take a lot of intuition-led bold bets also in the initial phases of a startup. You prioritize speed over perfection so that you are early to market. You don't lose out on on the opportunity to be first to the market. And you also end up doing a lot of different roles, right? As a product manager, you don't limit yourself in just writing PRDs or launching products. You also do some part of product marketing. You engage with business teams to maybe do some sales projections. So you don a lot of different hats when you're working in a startup. So your role becomes more breadth first rather than depth first, and while you're working in startups. When you talk about different sectors, specifically in fintech, if you're working as a PM in fintech, you need a lot of domain knowledge, right? And generally fintech companies kind of prefer people who are coming from a fintech background as well, because they understand the domain, they understand the regulatory landscape associated with it. A lot of financial institutions are heavily regulated by authorities, right? So you need to understand and identify opportunities to innovate within the regulatory landscape. That's where your domain knowledge and context comes in very much handy. When you're talking about edtech or social media, content plays a big role. So you need to, it is not about just solving for the end consumer who is consuming content, but also solving for the creator ecosystem, right? How do you make things seamless for them? How do you enable growth for creators who are creating content on this media, right? When you talk about games, understanding user psychology becomes a very important nuance. Only when you understand user psychology, you can decide when to intervene, how to design your games in the right ways to keep the engagement levels high and to improve your retention models, right? So although the core PM skill sets kind of remain the same across the board, but depending on which sector, which company, what kind of scale of the company that you're working in, you end up kind of prioritizing certain things and deprioritizing certain things so as to deliver value for the company and the sector that you're working in. So you need to be very flexible in terms of understanding what is the need of the hour, what is the need of the company and the role you are in, and kind of and tune yourself to fit into that kind of role and the expectations that come with it. Moving ahead, when we talk about software product management in general, there are typically 3 to 4 kind of PM roles that you would find in any kind of company, right? There are growth PMs, there are platform PMs, there are data PMs, and there are horizontal PMs. Horizontal PM will not find a mention in many of these YouTube videos, etc. But it's an important nuance, and we'll find this kind of a role existing in multiple major companies, right? Now, how does the expectation and role differ slightly across this kind of different PM roles? In a growth role, your focus primarily becomes how do you optimize the conversion funnel, right? and your metrics primarily depend on what is the user engagement, how do I grow my user base, how do I optimize my funnel, let's say conversion funnel or engagement funnel. Those will be your key metrics that will be chasing day in and day out. And in order to achieve those metrics, you have to showcase some important skills or traits as a PM, right? You have to be very good in terms of understanding the underlying users' motivations, what his pain points are. You have to be very good in design thinking, identifying innovative ways to kind of address the user pain point, understanding user psychology, so you know how to convince him to move ahead in the funnel, or how do you make him activate in your journey. You have to understand nuances of how do you market a product, how you launch and drive adoption for a particular product, because you'll be launching new features and new products every now and then. So you have to drive adoption. Launching products is not enough, right? Finally, you have to drive adoption. You have to make people use the feature or product that you're launching. You have to be good at doing product marketing as well. And when you do that, you engage a lot in terms of doing user research, working a lot with design and UX teams. You do a lot of continuous A/B experiments, because you conduct maybe hundreds of experiments, and some experiments succeed, some experiments fail, and some of those successful experiments give you enormous amount of metrics improvement, right? So you do a lot of experimentation continuously, and you work a lot with kind of design, sales, marketing, and analytics force while you're doing this. As a platform PM, your focus shifts slightly away from the user and becomes more in terms of how do you build a long-term platform? How do you build a SaaS product of sorts, right? Um, um, while I was talking through is like, let me give you also some examples, right? When I talked about growth PM, an example from the e-commerce industry, right? If you, let's say you are owning a particular category, you are a PM for the grocery category, right? Um, the entire shopping funnel looks more or less similar to any other category, right? Within grocery also, you search for products, you add certain products to your cart, and you make the payment and complete the order, right? But there are a lot of nuances. For example, in grocery, you don't compare products. You don't involve a lot in doing research, right? So your funnel needs to be optimized to cater to these nuances, right? A grocery PM will be understanding how this category and how the shopping journey for this category looks different from other categories, and do UX optimizations, journey optimizations for that particular category. When you're thinking about a platform PM, your focus shifts slightly to build a generic product, right? For example, catalog in an e-commerce ecosystem. When I say catalog is basically the platform which at one end you get all of content from sellers and manufacturers in terms of product related information, inventory, price, everything. And at the other end, you power all of this information on the shopping journey for a customer, right? Now, if I'm selling t-shirts today versus tomorrow I want to start selling, let's say, automobiles on Flipkart, I need to build a platform which can do either of these, right? I can actually sell t-shirts as well as sell uh, automobiles online, right? So what are the kind of capabilities I build in the platform so that it scales up to the use cases and business models that come up in the future? That becomes your focus, right? You focus a lot in terms of building a simple platform which is easy to get onboarded into. It's a reliable platform so that uh, it is highly scalable, it is available, it doesn't kind of crash during peak periods or peak traffic times, all of that, right? And as a platform PM, you work a lot with engineering teams, architect teams to prepare platform blueprints, do a lot of documentation. For example, a PM who is working in uh, let's say Postman, right, who is working and building an API led ecosystem, right? He has to do a lot of documentation in how do you use the products that the company is building. You have to also evangelize the platforms that you're building so that you onboard more teams and more companies to use your product in the longer term, right? uh, the third nuance is the data PM, right? Now, when you're a data PM, your focus shifts slightly towards how do I use data and leverage data to build more futuristic models, right? Like either in terms of predicting certain things, like let's say I want to do a sales projection for a particular category in e-commerce. or I want to build a intelligence layer in terms of how do I profile customers. Like let's say I'm building a user insights platform, right? I want to know based on browsing behavior whether he's a male or a female, what might be the age group of the customer that is browsing on Flipkart, right? And I can use all of this data to start personalizing the experience for that customer while he's shopping on Flipkart. So as a data PM, your focus shifts primarily to understanding data, building intelligent products on top of that data using data science techniques and a lot of analytical models. And these models or these products eventually get used by a growth PM or a platform PM to further optimize the funnel, right? Let's say, for example, I build a user preference model. Like I, as a user, I build uh, an intelligence. I, as a user, prefer, let's say, buying branded products over unbranded products. Now, search platform PM would come to me, ask for this data, and optimize the search experience to drive better conversion, right? If show me kind of branded products when I'm shopping on Flipkart versus someone else who is coming to Flipkart, so unbranded products because he might be price sensitive, might be a price sensitive customer. So as a data PM, we work with a lot of analytics and data science folks in kind of building these models and evaluating these models and kind of making the right trade-off calls. A lot of times your models take a lot of time to build. Models might not be accurate for a lot of customer cohorts, and you as a PM need to help data scientists kind of make these trade-off calls. The last type of PM role is a horizontal PM, where basically, and the example I've taken here is, let's say, seller NPS, right? NPS is a key customer facing metric that everyone tracks in the industry. It stands for Net Promoter Score. So a lot of factors influence your customer or seller NPS, right? Um, and the ownership of NPS as a metric is not kind of owned by a particular individual. It generally spans across multiple product and individual PMs. In order, sometimes when you lack the focus to optimize on a certain metric like NPS, you start having a central PM who works as a horizontal PM, who work with individual platform product PMs to optimize different factors which contribute to NPS kind of a metric, right? So typically you'd see PMs working or optimizing on either of these kind of nuances. I'll just kind of pause here. I think there's a lot of data on this slide, so I'll let you kind of consume it quickly before I move on. So broadly, the takeaway is that although the general PM skill sets kind of apply across the board, but depending on the role that you are in, you prioritize and you need certain skill sets to be more important versus some others, right? Now, I think now that you understand what are the kind of different PM roles which exist in the industry and in any kind of tech company, now how do you get into a PM role, right? And I get this question very often, and now there are a lot of plenty of opportunities for a PM. Everyone kind of wants to get into a PM role, right? Historically, we have seen engineers and kind of marketeers be the right folks to get into a PM because engineers are understand technology, understand systems, and marketers are closer to your clients, customers, or sales folks. So and they bring in one dominant skill set which you need as a PM, either technology understanding or customer understanding, right? But today there is no such limitation. Today anyone can become a PM. All you need to do is start developing the skills that you need as a PM and kind of optimize for them, right? And how can you develop the core skill sets that you need as a PM? There are a lot of avenues today in the ecosystem. You can learn it yourself, but the best way to learn is going through some kind of structured program, right, where you learn the theoretical concepts and you get to also apply them. A lot of times people choose to do a postgraduate program like an MBA or a certification in product management, which helps them learn these skills in a more structured and guided and mentored manner, and get to apply them in a real life forum as well, right? Real life scenario as well. So it's always advisable to kind of go through a structured learning program so that you're disciplined and kind of get to apply these concepts in a more real-time basis. But you can always kind of develop a lot of these skills yourself as well. It's always advisable to also identify and seek mentors outside of the ecosystem, right? we generally miss out on that and kind of not give a lot of importance to that. I would urge you to kind of network with people who are already in the product management domain, seek mentoring, and kind of learn from their own experiences so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel when you start as a PM, right? An important thing that you need to also think is, although you might yourself develop skills for a PM, you need a way to also communicate it to recruiters that you have learned and you are demonstrating your skill sets as a PM, right? And this happens through, there are a lot of signaling techniques that people use, right? Either by an MBA degree or a professional certification, like for example, what Upgrad is offering a lot of structured courses in product management, through which you can also learn and apply those skills, as well as get a professional certification, which you can use to signal to recruiters that I am actually ready for a PM role at a company like Flipkart or any other company, right? Along with that, one nuance that people generally tend to kind of miss out on is you also need to build a portfolio of your own and tweak your resume as well, right? Not many times we just have a resume which have optimized for the current role that we're working in and kind of send it to recruiters, but it doesn't work a lot many times. You need to understand that there is a certain way to build your resume as a PM, and how do you kind of build your portfolio and showcase to recruiters on your resume, right? And the last part is obviously finding opportunities. Typically, we rely on job portals to do that, but I think there are a lot of other ways to also do it, right? Lot many times there are opportunities for a PM role within the company that you're working in. It is a lot easier to kind of move internally, uh, do a small kind of stint as a PM within your own company. And that gives us two benefits. One, you kind of learn the skill sets. You also get the designation, desired designation, or the desired title that you have against your name, which helps you kind of connect with more recruiters in the future, right? It's also advisable, like in the absence of the such opportunities, you can also look at doing short internship stints, or I networking with people and asking for referrals, right? I think that works a lot in terms of giving you access to a lot of opportunities which exist in the industry. And if none of these exist, you don't have a well-founded network, you don't have a way to do internships, there are a lot of forums where communities like startup people from startups and other product management communities connect, discuss about the PM industry. There are a lot of workshops and events which happen. You can also attend and kind of start networking with people who come to these events and build your portfolio, right? These are a lot of ways to get into a product management role. Now, quickly, let's say you are exploring a product management role and you want to interview with a company like Flipkart or any other similar kind of global tech company, right? Uh, the interview process looks fairly similar across these companies. If I talk about Indian companies or US based software companies or even Europe based tech companies, it looks more or less similar, right? The interview process consists of discussions which test you on two broad aspects. One is your competencies as a PM, which ranges from problem solving to how do you think about building products, to how well do you understand engineering systems or technology systems, to how well do you understand business and apply your learnings to the business context. So there are a lot of discussions which happen in terms of accessing your competencies and skill sets as a PM. Then there are a second set of conversations which evaluate you in terms of your leadership skills as a PM. I think it's very critical to understand that it's not just about your hard skills in terms of how well you are a thinker or how well you structure your problems or how well you break down your problem into sub problems. It's also about how do you communicate, how do you do storytelling, how do you evangelize your vision and long-term platform thinking to your stakeholders, how do you get resourcing behind your idea, right? So a lot of leadership skill sets need to come across to make you succeed as a PM, right? So your interview process is kind of tweaked to make sure that you are evaluated on both your competencies as well as your leadership skills. Now, typically in a company like Flipkart, you have an exploratory conversation where we kind of evaluate you on your experience. Do you fit into the culture that Flipkart has in place? How much time would you need to kind of get onboarded and all of that? Then you have a problem solving or execution round where we are checking for your structured thought process, right? Given a particular problem, can you break it down into sub problems? Can you build hypothesis around a particular problem, why this problem exists, what could be the different hypotheses around it. Can you understand metrics in order to test one hypothesis? Can you instrument, can you articulate what are the L0 and L1 metrics that you would use to evaluate whether my hypothesis is valid or not valid? What kind of experiments you can do? So those are things that you generally kind of get evaluated on a problem solving round. In a product thinking round, generally you would be asked about building a certain product, or improving a certain product, or building an incremental feature, right? How do you go about doing it? And the things that you get tested for is how well do you understand your customer base? Can you create the kind of right customer cohorts? Can you articulate what are the pain points or the motivations for those customer cohorts? Can you prioritize in terms of which pain points are more important to be solved? Can you identify, can you build a go-to-market plan for the product that you're building? Those are things kind of you get checked for when you in a product thinking kind of a round. In your tech understanding round, you typically converse with an engineering guy, and all he's checking for is you are not expected to learn how to code or anything. It's just about the engineering guy feeling comfortable that you can, on a day-to-day basis, converse with an engineering guy, make him understand your requirements, uh, uh, help him make the right kind of trade-off calls, right? And in a business round, you typically give your understanding, showcase your understanding of the business ecosystem. Like, how well do you understand e-commerce, for example? Do you understand the different flavors of e-commerce? What are the kind of innovations which are happening? What are the trends around e-commerce which are happening today? Can you showcase all of those skills as well as the understanding of those trends which exist in the ecosystem, right? Those are the things typically we test you while we are hiring at a company like Flipkart. Moving on. So once you join in as a PM, right, and depending on which company you kind of get interviewed for, the interview process might vary slightly here and there, but typically you get evaluated for those 3-4 skill sets largely in any company that you go for, right? And once you join and once you start as a PM, there are 4 broad skill sets that you need to develop in order to kind of succeed as a PM over your career, right? The one part of it is generating customer-led insights, right? Where, for example, you look at data, you talk to customers firsthand, you spend time with them, you spend time with user research in developing a better understanding of who the customer is, what is the pain point for the customer that you're solving for, what is that is solved in the industry, what is not solved in the industry. So generating customer insights is one broad skill set that you need to develop as a PM. The second part is delivering the product that you want to build, right? Writing a PRD, sharing it with engineering, working with designers to build the UX mockups, actually testing the product, launching it in the market, improving your metrics. That's the part where you execute on the product, execute on your idea, and launch the product, right? So that is another skill set that you need to develop as a PM. The third part is influencing stakeholders, right? Where a lot of times what you're building, when you come up with an idea, a lot of people might not be convinced about it. So you need to sell your idea. You need to influence your stakeholders. You need to fight for your leadership to put resources behind you in terms of either people who can who can develop the product, or people who can help you analyze the metrics or whatever it is, right? So a lot many times you have to kind of evangelize what you're building, sell your long-term vision, and influence stakeholders. So stakeholder management becomes the third core skill set as a PM. The fourth part is building strategy, right? Product is what you build has to connect with your overall company strategy, right? Like today, for example, uh, uh, if I talk about, for example, Flipkart, right? And we have decided that we want to we want to stay in e-commerce within India is only for now, right? So we don't look at opportunities outside of India, like and what are the kind of different customer cohorts which exist there, and how do you solve for them, right? So whatever you build has to be really focused in terms of what your company strategy is, and how do you connect your product strategy to the company's strategy. I'll give you another example. Let's say you are a product manager at Spotify, right? Spotify has been an audio only platform till today, right? Tomorrow, if you come up with an idea that I want to do video led uh, uh, podcasts on Spotify, right? but it doesn't tie up to your audio only strategy as a platform, right? Either you kind of evangelize and convince your company leadership that you need to get into videos as a segment as well. Otherwise, you kind of build your product strategy focused around the audio only theme, right? So connecting your product strategy to your business strategy becomes your fourth kind of key skill set. Now, once you kind of join as a PM, we talked about what are the kind of core skill sets you need to develop to succeed as a PM. But as you spend more time as a PM, you typically go through this kind of a career trajectory, right? You start with an APM 1-2 when you're coming from an undergrad college. You graduate into a PM 1-2, PM 1 or a PM 2. Then you graduate into an SPM or a GPM, or in some industries you call it a PPM. So GPM stands for Group Product Manager, PPM stands for Principal Product Manager. These terminologies are interchangeable based on which company or industry you are in. And then you graduate into a director or a senior director and more kind of leadership oriented roles, right? If you think about the scope of work, all companies generally give a lot of ownership irrespective of which level that you come in, right? An APM 1-2 also owns the entire feature or the product that he or she is building. It generally is not the case that an APM is assisting a senior PM or anything like that. They kind of own the entire product or the feature that they work on, right? The only difference which happens is on the scope of work. As an APM, you are primarily owning a set of features. As a PM 1 or PM 2, you are owning one or two products in itself. As an SPM or GPM, you lead a large product area. Just to give you an example, an SPM or GPM would be leading the entire search platform in a company like Flipkart. Okay. And a PM 1-2 will be leading, for example, search ranking within a search ecosystem. Like if I talk about search, there is an experience to it, there is ranking to it, there is personalization to it. When at one end a GPM or an SPM would be leading the entire search product, a PM 1 or PM 2 will be owning just a part of search product, which could either be just ranking or it could be just price-led personalization or anything like that. And an APM would be kind of leading a feature within each of these. For example, let's say spell correction, right? Within let's say understanding of intent within the search query, right? And a director, senior director would be leading a much larger area. For example, discovery as a funnel metric, right? Like search is only one way to kind of identify what you want to buy, but there could be recommendations, there could be merchandising led lever. So director would be owning search plus merchandising plus recommendations in an e-commerce kind of a platform. So just to give you a flavor of how the scope of work kind of varies across these different leadership roles, right? In terms of responsibilities, I think as you get into a SPM GPM role, you start doing people management, you start contributing in hiring for your own team as well as for the entire org in general. And as you get into director, senior director kind of positions, you also engage in kind of defining the org structure, building the planning in terms of how many people you need, how much of capital you need to invest in some of these areas, and a lot of those, right? In terms of competencies, we talked about interview competencies in the previous slide. In an entry level, you generally get evaluated for those core competencies, but as you graduate, you get tested for strategy, you get tested for leadership competencies as well. Yeah, and I think before I end and open it up for Q&A, just one kind of last input, right? And you can very well kind of see here how do the competencies and expectations vary as you graduate in your PM career. As an APM, you are largely focused on deriving customer insights and building and launching a product. You don't engage a lot in terms of stakeholder management or building product strategy. But as a director, you focus more on selling your vision, influencing stakeholders, and building product strategy, and not so much on actually implementing the product, kind of launching it and executing it and launching it in the market, right? So as you grow in your career, you shift your focus more towards strategy and leadership, and focus less and delegate some of that work in terms of product execution and insights development to kind of junior PMs who are part of your team. Yeah, so this is what I had for today. I know we kind of rushed through a lot of this content, so we have good amount of time left right now. We'll be happy to take up your questions and address those.
Sure. Firstly, thank you so much, Ram, for such an amazing and a very insightful session today. There's a lot of information, that's available on product management, but then, somebody working in the domain and sharing insights is very, very valuable. So thank you so much for those insights. And participants, I hope, whatever questions you had in your mind, you all also enjoyed the session, and, the session was great. I already see Pranay saying it was a great session. So thank you so much. That really makes me happy. Perfect. So yeah, I mean, this is what we had in terms of the presentation. Thank you so much. Now let's move on to the questions that we have. But before that, I just would want to mention one thing that Ram pointed out in terms of how you can develop PM skills, right? Where he mentioned it's very important to network. It's very important to follow very structured learning approach, right? So for participants who are looking forward to start their career in PM, or also to grow their career in PM, we have a product management program which I've already shared in the chat. You can go through this program. It's a very structured program which will give you insights about product management as a domain. We'll also have multiple case studies that we'll be doing. You'll get a lot of hands-on exposure. And also Ram spoke about networking, right? It's very important to network with PM and get mentored, right? So in the program as well, we'll have small group coaching sessions where we'll assign you to mentors like Ram. He himself is our SME for the product management program that we have with Upgrad, right? So you will meet professionals like Ram, who will be sharing their insights with you, will help you to build your network, create a strong network, and that is ultimately going to help you, right? So please check out our program. I've shared the link in the chat. I'll just do that again as well if anybody has missed it. Yeah. And if you have any doubts in terms of whether the program is right for me or no, you don't have to worry. You can just click on this link. There is an application process. You can start with your filling up your application, sharing your details with us. Then our academic team will sort of understand your background, your portfolio, and then recommend you how you can go about this, and what kind of program or what kind of specialization can you choose, because we also have 3 specializations in the program, as I earlier mentioned. So yeah, this was it, in terms of what the program offers. And also participants, who wanted to enroll into the program, who mentioned that in the first poll. I hope, this session was helpful, and, you're able to, a lot of your questions or whatever doubts you had in your mind are answered. If not, let's continue with the Q&A now, and, let's get all your questions answered. All right. Okay, this is an interesting question from Katir. How product management helps to grow the revenue of a company?
Yeah. I think there's no straight answer to that, but I think the important thing to understand here is everything that you build has to connect to the company's L0 metrics, right? Let's say a lot of PMs work on driving customer growth, right? Today, for example, we have a key metric called MAU, monthly active users. Today, a platform has 10 million monthly active users, and they try to increase it to 15 million monthly active users. And down the line, your company finds avenues to monetize that user base, right? So as you grow your user base of your platform, and you find more opportunities to monetize them, your revenue would increase. But that's one indirect way. Many times you also, like product managers who work on ad related products. Let's say you're a PM working in Facebook ads or Instagram ads. You directly influence the top line revenue of your company, right? The better personalize your ads, better you personalize your ads for your customer base, your click-through share of your impressions will increase, and revenue share of your product will increase, right? So I think it's important to, as a PM, you need to also put in the effort to connect your metrics, your product metrics to the right L0 metric at a company level. Only then you'll be able to understand how it contributes to revenue. And you need to do that. Otherwise, the effort that you're putting in would not be justified.
I think also, my perspective here, just to mention would be, I think PMs also look into, PMs follow very user-centric or a very customer-centric approach, right? So when you talk about product management, or let's say, if your organization is purely a product based organization, right? So it's also important to build something that is wanted by the customer, right? And hence, that's going to be well accepted, right, by your consumers or by your target market. So I think even that is one important aspect in terms of revenue, contributing to the revenue, where you're actually taking a user centric approach. You're getting user insights and you're building something that's actually wanted by the customers.
Yeah.
That is also one important
So
aspect.
mathematical answer to that question, slightly different take on it. So if you break down revenue in any industry, anything, right, what you come up with is sales into average selling price, right? And you further decompose sales, you'll get into number of customers into sales per customer, right? And you, as a product manager, you start focusing on improving either of these metrics. So either you optimize for number of customers and keeping the other two kind of variables constant, your revenue increases, right? So yeah, very correctly kind of put across by Subhada. So whatever you build for the customer and solving a pain point for him, and it will eventually kind of contribute to a company's revenue.
Correct. Great. Thank you so much for that question, Katir. I hope we have answered and given you like an answer that that has answered your question. Okay. Just checking into questions. Can I know? All right. So Satyapira asks how technology is involved in product management.
Yeah, I think
also Ram, one thing, before you go ahead, there was one question in the chat which said that is an engineer's degree or is an engineering degree important? It is by Nikita. Is it compulsory to be an engineer to take up this course? And I can see a lot of analytics is used in the course. I think honestly, analytics is not like related to technology or having an engineering background. Honestly, so yeah, I mean it's not like that you have to be an engineer to do a product management program. And as even Ram mentioned, that was traditionally, right? Now the paradigms have shifted, the narratives have changed, right? So if you do have the relevant skill sets, if you do, if you make yourself visible out there in the market, then it doesn't matter that if you're an engineer or an MD, right? You need to have the correct relevant skill sets, so that you can crack that role, and you're able to convince and self-brand yourself that okay, boss, I'm the correct one for this role. So I think that is important. So yeah, very simple answer to your question, Nikita. No, you don't need an engineer's degree to start your career in PM.
Yeah, and looking forward to your industry perspective as well, we actively hire people from non-engineering backgrounds because that also brings in a diverse perspective to product, right? Yeah, so the more diverse your team is, the diverse set of ideas come in and kind of build a better product, right? A lot many times you miss out on those nuances when you're getting people from same kind of backgrounds. And I have architects, I have people who have worked in core companies like oil and gas who come in and work as PMs at Flipkart, and they've done well on as a PM at Flipkart, and they've kind of exceeded in their career.
Correct. That totally makes sense. I completely agree to that. So yeah, thank you so much, Nikita, for that question. I'm sure this is like a universal dilemma that everyone has before entering into a PM job or thinking about anything related to product. Okay, perfect. Next question. Okay, so Irfan, hi sir, I have worked in 2 different companies, each of a different sector. After exploring, I observed that PM is a good career. That's true. Will switching into a different sector again affect my resume? Definitely no.
Yeah, I think I get this question a lot, right? I think somewhere you need to trade off between your short-term goals and your long-term goals, right? And as a PM, you always optimize for your long-term goals, right? Be it while solving customer problems or business problems, right? It can happen that if you're, let's say I've worked as an engineer for 7 or 8 years as a developer, and I want to move into product management, I need to take a slight kind of a pay cut or maybe a lower designation when I get started as a PM or any kind of new role. That can happen. What you have to also keep in mind is what is the role where your skill set should fit in better, and you'll be able to optimize and compensate for that short-term loss in the longer term, right? So keep that long-term lens in mind and take those calls. There is a possibility of making a short-term loss in some of these aspects, either in terms of rewards or something else, but that will get overcompensated for as you optimize for your long term.
Correct, definitely. The next question is from KV Shravan. Can MCA students apply for PM, or is there any obligations? If yes, how will it be affected by switching to PM?
Again, there's
So
no limit. Anyone can kind of pitch in, yeah.
Definitely. Also, from the program perspective, if you have a graduation degree with 50%, in your graduation, then yes, definitely you can apply for the program. So yeah, there are no obligations, or nothing is going to affect you if you are switching your career to PM. And also if you're looking, to sort of make your career, I've already mentioned the links. You can just check out your program. If you do have any doubts, get in touch with our team and get all your questions answered, and then you can probably take an informed decision. Okay. One more question. I think this would be the last question that we would be taking, considering the time restrictions that we do have. Okay. So Lokesh says, can I know what made you choose PM role by doing MBA in finance? Is it that finance doesn't have more scope, or you don't enjoy doing it?
Yeah, again, this is also a question that I get asked quite often. I think there's no right or wrong answer to this. It's more about your personal preferences and what you want to do in your life, right? And I had opportunity to pursue a finance career as well as a PM career. I think for me, what stood out was, one, as a PM, you're actually building things and not just kind of influencing things that are built by other companies, right? You are actually building things and helping solve problems that users face on a day-to-day basis. Second, in a finance-oriented role, you'll generally observe that when you start off, you work primarily as an individual contributor, and you only get to do people management, leadership, kind of get leadership opportunities further down the line in your career, right? But as a PM, leadership skills, exhibiting them becomes very important for you to succeed from day zero of your PM role. And you learn a lot of that when you get into a PM role. Third, I think if you want to future-proof yourself, you have to understand the industry trends, where they are moving, and try to be there before time, right? Today, the technology is kind of getting into everything that you do on a day-to-day basis. So why not be in a technology-oriented sector and technology product when you know that that's the future? I think these were the three primary influencing factors which led to my decision as when I graduated from my MBA.
Right, that's great. Thank you so much, Ram, for sharing those insights. Perfect. So I hope, Lokesh, that answers your question. So yeah, I think this is it that we had. One more question from Akshay. Can economics student apply for PM? Just reiterating once again, anyone can apply, until unless you do have the passion to get into product management. And of course, let's talk about opportunities. Opportunities definitely are immense in the product role, and it's only going to increase from here on. A lot of more areas will be opening up in product. So yes, if you're looking forward to make your career in PM, I think that would be a very great and a very successful career if you would want to make. So yeah, this is what we had in terms of the question. So thank you so much, all of y'all, for joining us today, asking your questions, and also thank you so much, Ram, for sharing all your insights. It was definitely a wonderful session, and we would definitely love to have more sessions with you. Also, I just got one comment. Thank you, sir, and thank you, ma'am, for making such a wonderful session, and it helps me a lot, and I get some idea about PM. So yeah, honestly, that is the intent, Shravan, that we did have, and we're very glad that the session helped you. And since it's a Monday evening, I'm sure everybody wants to end their day on a Monday, but still you guys were here. So yeah, thank you so much, and hope to see you all in the upcoming session. But yeah, before that, just before we leave, one last poll, which is the exit poll. I would just like to hear from you all. How was the session, and what was most what was something that you liked the most about the session? And then I'll just have a better understanding about what you people prefer and what not, right? So yeah.
And while people respond, I think thanks, Subhadra, for coordinating this really well. And all the attendees as well for being patient enough. We rush through a lot of this content, but hopefully it gives you more clarity as you go in planning your PM careers. And definitely look for kind of opportunities to learn your and develop your PM skill sets in a more structured manner, and get to apply those in association with people who are your peers in the PM role, right? I think best of luck in your PM journeys.
Right. Also, folks, I've just shared my email ID. So let's say if you do have any questions, or if you're not able to get in touch with our team, I have shared my email ID. So, you can just write to me and I will make sure that I redirect, your concerns to the concerned team or the concerned person. All right. So I think we've, got the poll, and 80% participation is what I see. And all of them have said that yes, the session was very, very helpful. So that's amazing. Great. So yeah, I'm just going to end this poll with 90% participation, all saying yes, that they love the session. And what was something that they found most value adding was the topic and the speaker covering the topic in the easiest way possible. See, I think this were insights for you, Ram. Just a little feedback for you. So yeah, thank you so much, all of you all, for joining us today. I've just shared all the necessary information regarding the program. Again, if you do have any doubts, please get in touch with us, and we would be very, very happy to, help you out and assist you. And for participants who are looking forward to enroll, I hope we've helped you, and definitely looking forward to see you all on board. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thanks, Subhada.
And would definitely love to see you all in the upcoming sessions that we do have. Bye-bye. Bye, Ram.